This is Joel Sherman back with three things. Let's stick with the Mets for all three things. I was at the game on Sunday. They lost to the Nationals 3-2. It was almost an impossible loss in an impossible lost weekend where they lost two out of three. Because the Nationals are not just a terrible team. They were a terrible team playing terribly all weekend, and the Mets couldn't take advantage of that to win a series, or really they should have been able to sweep this series and put themselves in a healthy situation to play this last week as ahead in the wild card. Instead, let's start here. They're tied with the Reds for the final wild card. This is number one. The Reds have the tiebreaker, so the Reds are in control. The Reds aren't going to win every game this week. The Mets are going to have opportunities in this last week. But let's start here. This would be the worst collapse in the history of the Mets. There's a lot of bad moments for the Mets. The one that's always picked out as the worst is 2007. They blow a 7-game lead to the Phillies with 17 to play. I'll say this. This is worse. If you go look at that Phillies team, at least they were losing to an historically significant team. The Phillies, go look at the players on that team. Probably 15 guys ended up being on the Hall of Fame ballot. A couple are going to get into the Hall of Fame. They won the World Series, the Phillies, in 2008, and played in the World Series in 2009. They were in the midst of being in the playoffs for 5 straight years. That was a really, really good team. The Mets have been in slow motion losing this playoff spot for over 3 months. And trust me, the Reds, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks, this is not the 2007 era Phillies. The Mets got Juan Soto from the Yankees. They brought back Pete Alonso. They brought up Nolan McLean, who looks like he's going to be a star. They have a $300+ million payroll. This would be the worst of it. And just to highlight how bad they've been, and maybe we just have to accept that they're bad, is since June 13th, they have the 27th out of 30 best record in the sport. It's 35-52. That's just ahead of Washington. Washington is 28th at 34-54. The Mets have been bad for more than half a season. Maybe the reality is they're bad. If they are, let's go to number two. We're going to lose some faith in the leadership here. David Stearns, Steve Cohn, Carlos Mendoza, they were hailed last year. The Mets started poorly and then surged to the playoffs and then got all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS before losing to the eventual champion Dodgers. And it felt like the Mets were on the right track with the right people. I would still believe that David Stearns running baseball operations is going to be a great move by the Mets, but his stuff hasn't really worked this year. Cohn's money hasn't worked this year, and Mendoza has not been able to reach this group to get the best cohesive play at one time. This team has been disjointed the entire year. It has not played clean baseball in the field. Sometimes that's not about the manager. It's just like if you're going to have Mark Vientos and Pete Alonso on your corners, you're going to get some butchery in the field, and the Mets have gotten that. But the Mets have not played well. And obviously now the loudest of the fan base is calling for heads of people. I would think, I spoke to David Stearns in the dugout before the game yesterday on Sunday, and he again reiterated Carlos Mendoza is doing a good job. I asked, is he in trouble? And he said, no, he's doing a very good job. So I'm going to assume if Steve Cohn is listening to David Stearns that that group, that Stearns and Mendoza, is safe. I wonder about the pitching coach Jeremy Hefner. I wonder about the hitting coach Eric Chavez. If the Mets miss the playoffs this year, and maybe even if they get in and get blown out quickly by, say, the Dodgers in a wild card round and lose 2 straight, I think there's got to be some reassessment about how things went this bad for this long. And let's go to number 3. There's still a week left here. There's still 6 games left. The Cubs have lost a bunch of games in a row right now. The Mets are going to Chicago. The Cubs are pretty much locked into that top wild card. They got to take care of a little business this last week, but they don't have a ton to play for. The Mets then go to Miami, a team that hasn't really had anything to play for, but historically has messed up the Mets season in a lot of different years and could do it again. This is a have to go no less than 4-2, maybe 5-1, heck, 6-0 week. The Mets' reputation, this 2025 group, is on the line here. On paper, they're better than Cincinnati and Arizona, who are the last teams that could hop them, and both have right now the tiebreaker over the Mets. The Mets have a week to change the perception of this year's team. Are they strong enough, talented enough, and have the mental fortitude to do that?